Hello, beautiful people. Today is 9th of July. My name is Sahil, and welcome to Newspaper Analysis. Friends, today we'll see a quote from Saint Augustine, a most prominent theologian of early ancient times. He says, right is right even if no one is doing it. Wrong is wrong even if everyone is doing it. So guys, the morals or ethics doesn't depends on to the approval of the society or by the performance of a few or many. They are right because of the content, because of the values that they uphold. So guys, this particular quote we can use into the answers in GS paper number 4, ethics, into the topic of ethics and human interface. Now the main question that I gave you yesterday. So guys, the question is from GS2IR. It says that India's extended neighborhood policy from Suez to Shanghai cannot overlook disputes brewing in South China Sea. Suggest what should be India's approach with regard to South China Sea. First of all, guys, India's look east has been translated into the act east, and in that particular dimension, India cannot sit silent onto the South China Sea issues. Therefore, India needs to step in as an active proponent and as a stakeholder into the extended neighborhood issues. And upon entering, India needs to focus on certain prominent dimensions, that is strategic, economic, and diplomatic. Into the strategic dimension, India should propagate the freedom of the navigation of the sea lanes and non-interference into the free passage. On economic front, India needs to propagate the need of cooperation, as the 21st century is characterized by the Asian cooperation, and therefore the regional disputes should be avoided. And thirdly, onto the diplomatic angle, India needs to engage on two fronts, with China on the other hand and with the littoral states such as Philippines, Malaysia, Vietnam, Indonesia onto the other hands. And the interest as well as relation with both the countries needs to be balanced in such a way that India becomes a major way provider without impacting the relation. And guys, apart from this, enough of material we had already seen into the yesterday's editorial onto the South China Sea. So guys, this is the bare framework or the dimension on which you need to write your answer. So that's it, guys. And now let's go to the newspaper analysis. Friends, first of all, let's take up the overview of the entire paper. Now, guys, here we can see that certain NGOs have come under the Home Ministry's scanner. So, in this particular direction, we will see the FCRA versus NGO clash. Then, guys, the USA is now withdrawing from the WHO. So, it along with the world's page, we will be seeing this entire issue. Then, guys, here you can see that the mask parotas. So, guys, parotas are just like the parathas, but into the shape of mask, they are being made into the Tamil Nadu in order to increase the sensitization. However, apart from this, nothing is there. Then moving forward, guys, the online examination of DU has been deferred. Nothing important is here, but guys, this is unresponsible onto the part of universities as well as UGC to not to give the open instruction to the student as what will be the strategy for the future, and delaying examination repeatedly or cancelling them after giving the approval is a mental agony for the student, which should not be carried into the present times. Then moving forward, guys, here we can see that the sero prevalence has been mentioned, so we will see this what it is. Then guys, moving forward, nothing important has been given. Then the advertise, nothing important, and here is the editorial page. So here the social contract is mentioned into the first editorial, so we will see how we can use it into the GS paper number 2. Then guys, the Nitish Kumar and his Bihar election politics etc has been mentioned, not important for the exam. After that, guys, pandemic has been compared with the a novel, that is blindness, so we'll see certain dimensions here. After that, guys, MG Narega reforms has been mentioned, but in couple of days ago we had taken the entire MG Narega reforms because a report came where it was said that the 1.4 lakh people have already exhausted MG Narega, so comprehensively we had seen. However, moving forward, so guys, here in this article the joblessness in Tamil Nadu has been mentioned. Guys, any one state specific articles are not needed into the UPSC. Moreover, on joblessness, large number of issues already we had discussed. Then guys, here ecological decimation has been mentioned into the times of pandemic. We'll see this thing. Then moving forward, COVID-19 has no religion, not important for the exam. After that, guys, here we can see that the High Court has banned the Karnataka's ban on online education. So we will see the issues here. After that, moving. So guys, nothing important here. Only the regional news have been given. Now, Open Sky Agreement has been mentioned. So we will see the issues associated here. Then quorum not needed into the routine panel meetings. So we will see the issue here. Then guys, briefly here you can see that the rental housing scheme has been cleared by the cabinet. It is nothing but if you remember under the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, we had seen that government will make the residential rental complexes. So it is only that. After that, guys, moving forward, we can see that nothing important is here. However, the Samudra Setu has now been concluded. We had discussed that it is a initiative started by the government in order to evacuate the stranded citizens from the foreign countries. So it has now been concluded successfully. After that, showcase not important for the exam. Then guys, on to the world page, we can see that the WHO issue has been mentioned. So we will see this thing. Then moving forward onto the business page, guys, only the corporate issues has been mentioned, not important for the exam. And onto the last page, the lithium puzzle of star has been mentioned. So we will see this thing. So that's all. And now let's take up the newspaper analysis in detail. Now, starting up, guys, here we can see that certain NGOs have come under the scanner of Home Ministry. Now, in this article, there are two angles. As these NGOs are aligned to the Congress party, there is a political angle, and now a kind of a mud-slinging is going on between the two rival parties onto the charges of corruption and subversion of nationalism. However, guys, the other issue is the regulation and control of the NGOs, because earlier also there have been certain issues on this particular regard. So guys, we'll not be going into the political angle because not important for our exam, but we'll see the regulatory issues here. First of all, non-governmental organizations are those entities which work for a specific section of society or for a specific cause. For example, there are NGOs working for the animals, for the women rights, for the children, for the old age, etc. Further, there could be the registered NGOs and then there could be the unregistered NGOs. Now, guys, commonly the NGOs are registered under the Societies Registration Act 1860. However, there are other acts also under which NGOs are registered. For example, Religious Endowment Acts. Then there are certain sections under the Companies Act which also calls for the non-profit organizations. So there also NGOs are registered. Now, if we talk about the number of NGOs in India, then guys, according to 2009 governmental study, there are 29 lakh NGOs in India. And whereas according to 2015 CBI mapping of NGOs, there have been 31 lakh NGOs in India, which is twice than the total number of schools in India, 250 times the number of government hospitals. Moreover, guys, there is one NGO per 400 people in India, and even if we'll include the unregistered, then you can assume that where it will go. Now, friends, why I'm giving you such data? Because specifically under GS paper number 2, the NGOs have been given. Moreover, under GS 3 also, the regulation of NGO is a hot topic. Now, moving forward, see, these NGOs, they depend on funding on some major sources. For example, some of them are eligible for the government funding, but guys, there are very few organizations which are eligible here. After that, some of them receives a regular subscription fees from the member, and that happens to be a major source. And the third is the voluntary contribution from both domestic as well as foreign sources. Now, friends, the bone of contention is the foreign funding of the NGOs. As many a times it is believed that foreign funding is being given to these NGOs to subvert the national security, sovereignty, and defense. And therefore, in this particular direction, in 1976, Foreign Contribution Regulation Act was passed, which aimed to control or regularize the foreign funding of NGOs and various other entities. Then, guys, in 2010, this FCRA was repealed and new version of FCRA was instituted, and as of now, all the organization including NGO receiving the foreign funding has to register themselves under the FCRA. Now, this particular episode is one among the tussle between the NGOs and FCRA that is going on. Guys, in 2014, a document of IB was leaked where it was said that the NGOs in India are subverting the growth rate by 2 to 3% because they are involving into the anti-developmental and obstructionist activities for which they receive funding from the foreign sources. And since then, FCRA versus NGO tussle is going on. Even in 2019, IB submitted a report to the PMO and a National Security Advisor alleging that NGOs are still involving into the obstructionism as well as in aggravating the crisis in J&K. And thus, in past few months and years, various new rules have been tweaked in order to make the vigilance over NGO more effective. Now, guys, if we talk about the provisions of FCRA, then number one, any entity in order to receive the funding has to register under the FCRA. Number two, you cannot receive the funding for specific purposes such as election, journalism, newspaper publication, etc. Then third, any entity which is registered under FCRA, its registration is valid for 5 years, and after 5 years it needs to get scrutinized and further permission will be given. Then guys, the fourth is that all the members of the NGOs have to give a written declaration that they will not divert into propagating the sedition or violent activities in India. And likewise, so guys, these are the prominent highlights under the FCRA and the new FCA rules. Now friends, there are two particular angles into this particular thing, that government is doing all this activity because government cannot tolerate the dissent from the NGOs against its own policies. So from time to time, the FCRA, the provisions of Prevention of Money Laundering Act, the violation of the IT Act, etc., are being slapped. Whereas, on to the other hand, all these are the genuine regulations of the NGO. However, guys, we need to take a balanced approach in this particular regard. So, in this particular news item, the FCRA's allegations are again being levied along with the violation of money laundering, IT Act, etc. But FCRA is very much important here because many a times it has already came into the news. So friends, that's all about this particular issue, and now we'll move to next. Now guys, here we can see that the concept of high servo prevalence has been mentioned. Now, as a fight against COVID 19, the revised COVID response plan has been started, under which the serological survey of households were being carried. Now, guys, into these surveys, the blood samples of people were being taken to see whether they have developed the antibodies against COVID 19 or not. So, if a person is not exhibiting any substantial symptoms and his result is positive, then it means that the person has developed a comparative immunity and now is less prone or not prone to the COVID 19. Hence, into the serological survey, the random samples of more than 22,000 people were taken, and there it has been found that a high servo prevalence on an average 15% have been found. It means that 15% of the people have developed the antibodies, which is a good sign because it means that now more people are comparatively immune and thus they can break the chain of transmission. However, at the end of the day, there is always a limitation of the antibody based serological test, as they can only tell you the development of antibody and not whether the person has been recovered. So, guys, all the people who are showing the antibodies, it can also mean that many of them are still infected. So, guys, in that particular thing, also, the people showing the antibody also needs to be retestified by using the RT-PCR to make the effort even more impactful. So that's all, and now we'll move to next. Now, friends, we are into the editorial section, and the first editorial talks about the social contract into the times of crisis. First of all, social contract is the most prominent political theory of the statecraft. Now, guys, this theory has been perfected over the course of centuries by various philosophers and thinkers such as Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, Rousseau, but the most prominent and the precursor is Hobbes. and he has written extensively about social contract in his book Leviathan. Now guys, just before going into the social contract, I will give you a background in which the social contract was established. See, this was the 17th century, and at this point of time there were two opposing political philosophies, and the entire society is divided in favor of one. Now guys, the first is the theory of divine rights of the king, where it was said that the king is the representation of God on the earth, and by his virtue, his stature, he demands the complete submission of the entire society of all the people. But on to the other hand, there was the new democratic movement which has started, and the proponent of the democratism, who believed that king doesn't has any such superiority over the subjects, rather king is equally accountable to the state as well as people. So guys, here the Hobbes decided to make a compromise, and he said that the modern society is an outcome of twin arrangements. On one hand, citizens are giving up their absolute freedom to the state so that the individual freedom can be curtailed for the common good, so that state can make law which are to be abided by the citizen. But in return, the state also makes a promise to the citizen that it will never abuse its power and will work only for the welfare of the citizen. And guys, in this particular way, even our modern societies work. But over and over, a debate reignites that it is a time that we should reconsider the social contract, because many a times it has been said that democratically elected governments have failed to deliver onto their promises. They had failed to recognize the rights of the citizens, and therefore this entire dynamic of the allegiance and counter allegiance needs to be reconsidered, whether it is fulfilling its utility or not. Now this entire thing will be understood better, guys. I'll tell you certain themes which are going right now into the world. See, first of all, now the people have realized the importance of freedom of speech and expression, and now they are demanding even more freedoms for their fullest development. Second theme is that nowadays it has been seen that governments are consolidating their power, and into the name of preserving the welfare of all, they are seeking more and more executive power and are implementing every type of laws into the people. But now you tell that on one hand, when more freedom are being asked, and on to the other hand, government wants to consolidate more power, will there will be a kind of a cooperation between two? No, there will be not. And often we see that the conflict between the civil societies, NGOs, activists, and various other people and government is seen. Take the example of the student protest, take the example of the CAA protest, and all these kind of things. And now here we will introduce the third element. See guys, into the time of a crisis or into the time of present pandemic, people are willing to give all their freedom to the government so that government can preserve them. For example, now peoples are not having that much apprehensions against the state surveillance, against the abuse of privacy, against the intrusion of government in their own private lives. So we can see that into the time of crisis, government further consolidates its power into the name of common good or into the name of preserving the welfare of entire society. But guys, it starts a precedence where the social contract is hugely subverted into the favor of state, and state becomes even more powerful. And when it becomes powerful, it defies even the basic welfare of the citizen. And this has been seen into the disregard of the migrant rights, where they were not given any accessibility to the resources and the conditions for a dignified life, and they were even forced to walk for hundreds and thousands of kilometers because the state failed to come for their rescue. Moreover, friends, the present structure not only shows the government failure, rather it also reflects the huge inequalities that have been created into the society. Into the wake of pandemic, we had seen that our country is divided in two parts. On one hand, there is India, which can follow the social distancing, the hygiene norms, and can wear the masks in order to contain the contagion. Whereas on to the other hand, there is Bharat, where still social distancing is a luxury and maintenance of hygiene is still a distant dream. So guys, these inequalities again raises a question, that was this the purpose for which the social contract was made? Rather, it was made on an expectation that a society of equal rights, equal freedom, and common welfare will be established. So, guys, it is said that now there is a high time that the social contract needs to be rewritten. State needs to be realized that what was its actual role, and in this particular direction, the efforts from two hands needs to become. There should be the self realization by the state, and the centralization which is being carried into the welfare of the people should not be followed. Moreover, the people should also come forward and realize that what was their role into the one half of the social contract. They were to be the active votaries into this process, but they have surrendered their entire power. So, friends, at last there is a need that the Leviathan needs to be revisited. The empowered population needs to raise a voice against the subversion of the social contract and the need to rewrite it again. So, guys, that's all about this particular article, and now we'll move to next. Friends, this particular article talks about the miseries of the migrant people, and their situation has been compared with the plot of a novel which was named as Blindness and was written by Nobel laureate Jos Saramago. In this novel, there is a story of a town where a sudden epidemic starts and the people, they starts to turn blind. And here it has been said that the present pandemic of COVID-19 can be compared to the blindness contagion, and the comparisons have been made. Number 1, the government has turned blind as the people turned blind into this novel. How government has turned blind? It is simply not knowing the extent of migrant population in India so that active steps can be taken for their relieving. According to Chief Labor Commissioner, there are only 26 lakh migrant laborers, whereas according to the economic survey, there are more than 8 crore migrant workers in India. So, guys, simply there is a conflict into the government data, and without a relevant and coherent data, no specific concrete actions can be taken. Then, secondly, the blindness of the judiciary has been said, where the Supreme Court earlier dismissed the two petitions for the income support and food support for the migrants. However, finally it took the suo motu cognizance after the 20 senior lawyers appealed to the Chief Justice of India for the intervention. Then, thirdly, there is a blindness towards the hunger of the people. Now, guys, under the aegis of the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, government had said that the 5 kg additional food grains along with the 1 kg chana will be given to the beneficiaries of the National Food Security Act. That is good. But what about the people who don't have the ration cards? So, guys, it doesn't solve the problem of the migrants living into the other cities. The one nation one ration card will only be fully implementable in 2021. So what about the migrant people who are not having the ration card into the other state till 2021? Then, guys, there is also a very fundamental problem into the National Food Security Act. See, it takes the data of 2011 census, and onto the basis of this population, food allocations are being given by center to the state governments. But right now we are in 2020 and much population enhancement has been carried. So, guys, due to the old data set, there are 10 crore people who are not under the purview of the National Food Security Act even when they are eligible. So, what about this particular section of population? Government has simply turned blind, though the solutions could be to make the universalization of PDS. And then, guys, one more example has been given, that the government and the railways have turned indifferent to the people who have died into the Shramik Express. According to the data by the Indian Railway Protection Force, there have been 80 deaths into the Shramik Express between May 9 and May 27 due to the starvation and financial distress, but government has not admitted this particular claim. And on this particular front, the reminders have also been sent by the SWAN, that is the Stranded Workers Action Network. They had deliberately said that there are large number of people who simply don't have ration left for their sustenance, but still only the assurances have been given and nothing concrete has been done. So government has just created an archive of distress and museum of misery, and this thing will not work. The migrant people have their fundamental right of dignified life, and it is high time that the justice is given to all these people and their constitutional values. And guys, the spirit of transparency and accountability from the government as well as judiciary needs to be upheld right now, particularly into the time of crisis, and such epidemic blindness should be discarded with immediate effect. Guys, so this was all about this particular article, and the expression such as archive of distress and museum of misery could be very impactful if used into the answers. So guys, that's all, and now we'll move to next. Friends, this article drags our attention on to the unnecessity of the green lights that have been given to certain ecologically sensitive projects. The 21st century is characterized by very frequent outbreaks and epidemics. For example, earlier there was SARS, H1N1, there was MERS, there was Nipah virus, there was Ebola virus, there was the Zika virus outbreaks, and many of them has even qualified as the pandemic, including the present COVID-19. And in all of them there is a commonality that they have a zoonotic origin. So it is a high time that a distance between the human civilizations and forest is needed to be maintained. Guys, in COVID-19 we talk about social distancing, but if physical distancing is carried here, then there will be no need of the social distancing. But government is not getting all this logic, and rather government is doing the opposite. Guys, recently the expert bodies under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change has been constituted in order to give the fast track approval to various environmentally sensitive projects. For example, the Etlin hydropower project into the Dibang Valley, Arunachal Pradesh has been cleared. Then after that, the coal mine in Assam's Dihing Patkai Elephant Reserve has been cleared. Then guys, the diamond mining into the Panna forest belt has also been cleared. Then there are other also, for example, a coal mine which will be operated by the Adani Enterprises into the Talabera forest, and the limestone operationality into the Gir National Park is also a matter of concern. So guys, this is just a list among the large number of projects which are being taken. And not only this, rather an amendment into the EIA rules are also being made, and the EIA 2020 rules are being framed. If you remember, we have discussed it a couple of times. Now guys, under the part of these new rules, thus large number of projects have been exempted. They are simply not required to take the EIA as they have been given the strategic status. Secondly, under the new EIA rules, the project construction can start, and after the construction or during the construction, they can seek the EIA approval. So, guys, it is nothing but the blatant degradation of the environment. And thirdly, the time frame for the public consultation has also been reduced. So, guys, all these things will further degrade the environment, and by this particular way, government should not build the Atmanirbhar Bharat, as until at the end of the day it will be bringing its own cost. So guys, that's all about this, and now we'll move to next. Guys, here we can see that the High Court has stayed the Karnataka's ban to online the classes. So guys, recently into the month of June, the Karnataka government banned the online classes onto the pretext of deteriorating health of the children, as well as due to the severe impediments faced by people in accessing the online hardware such as the laptops and mobile phone. Now, the High Court has said that such kind of decision is arbitrary, and it is a clear violation of Article number 21 and 21A, which provides a fundamental right to education to the children between the age group of 16 to 14 years. Now, as the social distancing norms have to be observed and the physical classes have been closed, so the online education is the only way of availing the education. And in this capacity, the decision by the Karnataka government is violative of the fundamental right and hence unvalid. Now, guys, though the Karnataka government has its own logic in banning the education, but still it opens a very wide issue that whether such kind of things are justified or not. So, guys, there could be an issue on this particular dimension. However, avoiding the education or banning the online education is not a solution, guys, because COVID 19 is there to stay. And in such a capacity, if a gap in learning will come, then it will impact the cognitive abilities of the young people, because the minds are ever evolving into the age group of 6 to 14 years, and if the time here is not utilized to induce the adequate cognitive practices, then guys, the lifelong learning abilities can be impacted. However, there is also not a case that the uncontrolled online mode of education should be carried. Rather, the regularization can be carried, because any day little learning is better than the no learning. So friends, that's all about this particular issue. Moreover, you can also use it as a reference, and that's all. Now we'll move to next. Now, guys, here the open sky agreement has been mentioned, which UAE wants to amend in their favor. Now, guys, what is happening here? Before that, we will discuss the National Civil Aviation Policy of 2016. So, this is the principal policy for the aviation sector, and it has listed the issues such as regional connectivity, safety, air transport, 520 rule, which you might have also read into the newspaper. Guys, according to the 520 rule, any airline, if it wants to operate international, it should have the minimum experience of 5 years and fleet of at least 20 aircrafts. Now further moving, so under NCAP, the open sky agreement has also been mentioned. By the way, open sky means that the two countries will not be placing any limitations onto the number of flights that can operate between two countries. Now, as per NCAP 2016, India will be coming in the open sky agreement with the countries into the SARC, as well as countries which are 5,000 kilometer beyond from New Delhi. But now a bone of contention comes that what about the countries which are neither the member of the SARC and are not beyond 5,000 kilometers? What about the countries in between, such as the UAE? So with these countries, bilateral air service agreements can be signed, and India had signed such agreement with the UAE also. And guys, right now, India and UAE are operating nearly 1,000 and flights per week. However, UAE wants that India should remove such a restriction, because on one hand, India says that India wants to be an aviation hub, and on to the other hand, it is placing the restriction on the countries such as UAE. Further, guys, there is the Convention on International Civil Aviation of 1944, which is also called as Chicago Convention. Here, India says that we have the fifth and sixth freedom even without signing the Open Sky Agreement. Therefore, India is a little bit apprehensive in signing the Open Sky Agreement. So, guys, UAE here also says that it is different to have a fifth and sixth freedom, but still, India should sign the Open Sky Agreement as a part of good gesture between the two countries. So, friends, that's all about this issue, and now we'll move to next. Now, guys, here the issue of the standing committees have been mentioned. You might have read into your polity that in order to assist the parliament for some specific or technical purposes, the standing committees are constituted. Now, guys, into the Rajya Sabha, the matter has been raised that over the course of time, there have been more than 280 meetings of the different standing committees, and in these meetings, the quorum of 11 member out of a 30 member was to be required. Guys, quorum is a minimum strength to start any meeting. But it has been said that in many of the meeting, such minimum members were not there, and still the meeting proceeded. So into that particular direction, it has been said by the Rajya Sabha Secretariat that quorum is not needed for the routine meetings, and it is only essential when the decisions are being taken. Though the decision has been criticized, as it has been said that not constituting the proper strength of a committee might lead into certain biased decisions. So guys, that's all about this particular issue. Now we'll move to next. Friends, here we can see that the finally USA has started the withdrawal process from the World Health Organization. Into the past, we had seen that the USA had branded WHO as China centric and ineffective in handling the pandemic into the earlier stages, due to which now more than 1,30,000 people in USA has died. Guys, earlier the USA had threatened that they will stop the funding for the WHO, which amounts to nearly $450 million. And after that, they said that they'll completely withdraw, and now the withdrawal process has started. However, guys, there are certain issues in this particular regard. Number one, the exit process can take 1 year, so it will be finalized only into the July of 2021. Second, guys, is that into the November there will be the presidential elections into the USA, and if the new president is Joe Biden, then he can undo the process which has been taken by the USA. Then guys, the third issue around surrounded here is that right now there are $200 million that are needed to be paid to the WHO into the dues, and country cannot exit without clearing the dues. So, guys, on these three fronts, there are certain technical issues which are still to be handled. Now, the impact of this particular decision. It is a negative step and will be severely impacting the pandemic of COVID 19 as well as future pandemics, because USA happens to be the major contributor, and by this contribution, the support to the underdeveloped and developing countries are given. There are sub-Saharan countries, African poor countries, which purely depend on to the PPE suits as well as diagnostic kits on WHO, and WHO makes them available by the help of funding, and if it will be cut, then there will be impact on them. So guys, it undermines that the USA's attack of a responsible nation which it has always boasted. Moreover, Joe Biden has said that if he becomes the president, he will undo the entire action, but we still need to see up to November that in what direction it will go. So guys, that's all about this. Now we'll move to next. Now guys, this particular news talks about the lithium production into the star. First of all, guys, core science related, physics related question have not been asked into the UPSC, so don't need to bother too much. Now guys, if I tell you, earlier it was believed that, see, every element has come from the big bang, which started nearly 13.7 billion years ago, and since then every element into the universe has extended or has increased by the factor of millions. But the lithium is one element which had only increased by the factor of 4. Moreover, guys, the stars are the sources of large number of elements into the universe, but they are not the source of the lithium, and it has been seen that the stars consume the lithium as they grow old. However, into the planets, there is a substantial amount of lithium, and when we compare the two duo, that is the sun and the earth, then guys, the earth has a much more lithium than the sun. So, guys, this was the earlier understanding. However, in past few years, certain stars have been identified which have much more lithium than they should have according to the ongoing theory. Therefore, due to this, certain people disputed this and they say that the stars also make the lithium. But that thing was challenged. However, now the Indian scientists have solved that particular controversy and had said that into the lifetime of the sun, when the sun becomes a red giant, and into the later stages of a red giant, a stage comes when the star becomes the red clump. And here a new episode starts, which is called as helium flash, and here the sun starts to enrich it with the lithium. So guys, the lithium can also be made into the stars. The study for this particular thing has been published into the Nature Astronomy, and the major scientist into this particular endeavor is Mr. Bharat Kumar. So that's all about this issue, and now we'll go to the question section. Friends, please pause the video and try to answer the question. So first question is with respect to the midday meal scheme. Please identify the right option. Question number 2 is with respect to the Namami Ganga. Please identify the correct code. Question number 3 is with respect to the largest Indian butterfly which has recently been found. Question number 4 is with respect to history. Please identify the correct option with respect to the Zia al-Din Nashkabi. And now the main question for today is from GS paper number 2. So guys, the question says that constitutionalism in democracies is based on the premise of social contract. Do you feel that state has been successful to uphold the basic notion of social contract during present times? It will be a 10 marker question, guys. Please write it, and into the next class we'll be discussing the mains framework for it. So guys, that's all for today. I hope you are liking our discussion. Thank you so much.